My brother flashed a smug grin and said, "Well, the house is finally ours, thanks to the cosigner." I just gave a tight nod and said, "Glad it helped." That's when my mom leaned in and quietly added, "You know, you really shouldn't expect a room. It's their family home now." I stood there in the driveway, still holding the champagne bottle I'd brought to celebrate, when those words landed. Jamie's voice had that tone, cocky and satisfied, as if he'd pulled off something brilliant, even though none of the heavy lifting had come from him. "The house is ours now, thanks to the cosigner," he repeated, like he couldn't resist rubbing it in. He had that same familiar grin, the one that used to melt teachers and get him out of trouble, from finger-painting disasters to failed college exams. I kept my smile polite, lips pressed together. "Glad it helped," I said again, even though the words tasted stale. We'd made a deal 2 years ago. Back when the bank wouldn't approve Jamie and his wife for a mortgage, his spotty employment history and awful credit didn't exactly inspire confidence. He pleaded. She cried. My parents called me nonstop for 2 weeks. "Just help them get started," Mom urged, her voice syrup-sweet. "You're so smart with finances," she added. "Jamie just needs a little boost." So I gave them that boost. I didn't go into it blindly. I had the paperwork combed through, made sure I wouldn't be left holding the bag. Clause 14b gave me an exit strategy just in case. But I didn't expect that they'd twist my generosity into something they could turn against me. That's when my mom's whisper sliced through the moment. Soft voice, sharp edge. "Don't expect a room. It's their family home now." Just like that. No thank you. No gesture of gratitude. Just a casual dismissal from the very place I helped make possible. I didn't say anything. I just handed Jamie the champagne, forced a smile, and watched him and his wife stroll into the kitchen, gushing to her cousin about the new stainless steel appliances like they'd paid for every fork and faucet themselves. Later, while the backyard was filled with selfies and laughter, I sat in my car alone and pulled up the mortgage document on my phone. Clause 14b. It read, "If the cosigner no longer resides in or benefits from the property, they may initiate formal removal of signature, provided the mortgage cannot stand on the primary holder's income alone." My hands trembled slightly as I drafted the email to the bank. The subject line: Signature withdrawal request, Clause 14b invocation. 3 days later, I got a call. Jamie's name lit up my screen. I didn't answer. Let it go to voicemail. The message was frantic. "The loan's in default. What the hell is going on?" I just smirked, typed a 1-sentence reply, and corrected the title error he'd made. His panic reminded me of a different call, years ago when he was 24 and sobbing on the phone. He'd blown through his student loan in 3 weeks and was about to be evicted. That night, I wired him $1,200 without hesitation. This time, I let the phone keep buzzing. Each ring was like a roll call of every time I'd played cleanup for Jamie. Every time I'd been the one to fix what he broke. The dependable brother. The quiet one. The one who never made a fuss. The default problem solver. Because that's the role I was born into. Jamie was always the baby of the family. The dreamer. The creative spirit with big ideas and empty pockets. 1 year it was graphic design, then it was bartending, then dog walking, then planning weddings. None of it stuck. To my parents, that was finding himself. To me, it was just avoiding responsibility under a nicer name. Meanwhile, I was the one who held everything together. The reliable one. The one with the job, the plan, the credit score. At 19, I was clocking full-time hours and going to night school. By 25, I'd bought my first condo. By 29, I flipped it and made enough to upgrade. At 32, my credit score was 812. So when Jamie came to me with his big dream of buying a house for his growing family, I should have known better. But guilt? Guilt always wins. "Be a good brother," Mom had said. "Just co-sign," Dad added. "It's not like he's asking for money, just your name." But that signature turned into something a whole lot heavier. Every time they missed a mortgage payment, which happened more than once, I got the call first. "Oh, the car broke down." "Oh, daycare costs shot up." "Oh, the heater died." Always something. Always followed by a week, "We'll make it up next month." I covered for them more than once, quiet wire transfers they didn't even know about. I didn't want them feeling ashamed. Or maybe, I didn't want them to realize how close they were to losing that house, until now. Still, despite everything, they made sure I felt like an outsider. Take the housewarming party, for example, wasn't even officially invited. Found out about it through a cousin's Instagram story. But I showed up anyway, thinking, naively, that Jamie might say thanks. Maybe hand me a beer, raise a toast to the guy who made all of this possible. Instead, he greeted me with that same fake grin and said, "Well, we made it, thanks to the cosigner." "And Mom?" She leaned in again, ever so casually, and said, "You shouldn't expect a room. It's their family home." It stung. Not just because I technically had a legal claim to that house. It hurt because I thought about all those holidays where I gave more than I had to make sure Jamie and his kid had gifts. All those birthdays where he forgot mine, but I still brought something for his son. Every time my parents bragged about Jamie turning his life around, they managed to overlook the fact that I'd just been promoted again. I kept thinking back to the time he burned through $4,000 of borrowed money chasing some half-baked idea about artisanal hot sauce. Or when he and his wife started a GoFundMe for baby expenses, and used half the money on a weekend staycation. Then there was last year, when he called and asked me to co-sign because, in his words, "We've finally grown up." And I believed him. I wanted to believe him. The night of the housewarming, I sat alone at my kitchen table with the mortgage agreement in front of me, reading it again and again, like the words might somehow change. It felt like swallowing glass. Clause 14b stood out like a glowing emergency exit sign. My only way out, and they had the nerve to set the whole damn plane on fire. So I jumped. I sent the email to the bank. Then I waited. Day 1, nothing but silence. Day 2, a few missed calls. Some texts. Day 3, at 9:17 a.m., Jamie called. His voice was shaky, the kind of panic you hear when someone realizes they're in real trouble. "You need to call the bank, man," he said. "They're saying the mortgage isn't stable or something." I replied calmly. I asked them to remove my signature. "It's clause 14b. You're gonna need to refinance under your own credit." You can't just do that." "I can. And I already did." That afternoon, at 4:41 p.m., my dad texted, "We may lose the house." I stared at the screen for a while, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I typed 3 words. Not my problem. What came next hit faster and messier than I expected. By day 4, the family group chats were buzzing. Jamie's wife posted a vague but pointed Instagram story about being betrayed by the one person you thought you could count on. My mom called me 4 times in an hour. I ignored every single one. On the 5th day, when Dad called, I finally picked up. "Son," he began, his voice rough around the edges, "we need to talk." We met at a diner, neutral territory. He slid into the booth across from me, and I barely recognized him. More gray in his hair. Shoulders hunched. Worn down like the pressure had finally cracked through the surface. He stirred his coffee slowly. No cream. No sugar. Just bitterness. "I don't get it," he finally said. "Why would you do this to your brother?" I leaned back, arms crossed. To him? Or for myself? "You knew they didn't have the credit to pull this off." I co-signed, "Yeah, but I also made sure clause 14b was in there in case I ever got pushed out." "You weren't pushed out. Mom told me not to expect a room. That's not exactly a warm welcome." That was taken out of context. I let out a quick, humorless laugh. No, that was the context. I was useful enough to help them get the place, but not enough to be included in it. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "You should have come to us before pulling something like this. You blindsided the family." I stayed quiet for a beat, then said, "You mean the family that didn't invite me to the housewarming? The one that puts Jamie on a pedestal and treats me like a walking checkbook? The same family that spent years rewarding chaos and punishing boundaries." "You're being dramatic," he snapped. And there it was. That old tone. Like I was 17 again, asking why Jamie didn't have to do chores while I mowed the lawn in a downpour. "No," I replied. "I'm just being honest. And I'm done." He sat back, eyes wide. Like the words hit deeper than he expected. I let the silence linger, let it settle thick in the air between us. Then I dropped the real hammer. You want to hear something funny? I asked the bank for the latest copy of the mortgage, after Jamie and Tara supposedly refinanced last year. Dad blinked. What? I slid a printout across the table. Check out page 2. Line 3. Bars. Jamie R. Last name. Tara R. Last name. Cosigner, Liam M. My name. He skimmed it, brows furrowing. So they refinanced without even telling me. Which, under clause 12a, breaks the cosigner agreement. They kept me locked into legal responsibility without my consent. That's mortgage fraud. His face went pale. He gripped the paper like it might tear in his hands. You're not thinking of pressing charges, are you? I tilted my head. Should I? Come on, Liam. He's your brother. He's also a grown man. He knew what he was doing. So did she. Dad didn't argue. Just stared down at the paper like he could will it to disappear. I didn't do this to punish anyone, I added, my voice softer now. I just don't want to be taken advantage of anymore. He rubbed his temples. Jamie's freaking out. They can't get approved without you. They're about to lose the house. I met his gaze. That's not on me. Later that night, Jamie called. No hello. No lead up. He went straight to the attack. You ruined us. You ruined yourselves, I said flatly. He was shouting now. We've got a toddler, man. The baby. You're seriously gonna let your niece live in a motel? My voice turned cold. Don't talk to me about family. Not after what you and Tara pulled. Not after you forged my name on a refinance just to score a better interest rate. I thought you had our back. I was your safety net. And you ripped a hole in it. There was a long pause. Then a softer voice, almost a whisper. We were just trying to build something. And I was just trying to protect myself, I replied. Looks like we both did. He hung up. That weekend, my mom showed up at my doorstep without warning. Eyes red from crying. A casserole dish in her hands. Her version of a peace offering. You're really not going to help them? She asked, her voice shaking. I cracked the door just enough to look her in the eyes. Not with a house they told me I wasn't welcome in. Her lip trembled. It's not fair. You're doing fine. You don't have kids. You don't have. Exactly, I interrupted. I don't have kids. I don't have a wife. I don't have kids. I don't have anyone leaning on me like that. And you know why? Because every time I tried to build something of my own, my time, my energy, my support, they were handed off to Jamie like spare change. Mom glanced down at the casserole dish in her hands, like it might give her the right words. I didn't realize it was that bad, she said softly. I gave her a slow, steady nod. That's the problem. Then I closed the door. And for the first time in a very long while, I felt warm. The first thing I noticed after pulling my name from the mortgage wasn't the fallout, it was the quiet. Not a calm or peaceful silence. At first, it was the kind that keeps your shoulders hunched and your nerves on edge. Like you're still bracing for impact. Still waiting for the guilt texts. The manipulative calls dressed up as concern. The passive-aggressive voicemails about family and duty. But they didn't come. Not right away. The first 2 days? Nothing. Not a peep. No calls from Jamie. No late-night texts from mom or dad. Just silence. And considering this was a family who thought nothing of waking me up at 2 a.m. to ask if I could just float the mortgage one more time, that silence was unnerving. On the third day, the quiet finally broke. I got a voicemail from Jamie. His voice was tense, rushed, like someone who just realized the walls were closing in. The bank's saying the loan's unstable, man. What did you do? Tara's freaking out. You need to fix this, now. I didn't call him back. Didn't even flinch. Sure, a part of me felt that familiar pull of guilt. I'd spent so many years being the fixer. The reliable one with the clean record and the solid income. The guy with the boring but safe job and the bulletproof credit score. The one who always swooped in when things got messy. But the rest of me? The part that remembered how they used my name like a tool, How I stood in that driveway holding a bottle of champagne while being quietly told I didn't belong in the house I'd helped them buy, that part of me felt something else. Relief. And eventually, vindication. By the end of that week, I received a letter from the bank. Formal notice. Because Jamie and Tara had violated the cosigner terms, and because they couldn't carry the mortgage on their own, the loan had been flagged for default. My name? Officially removed. My responsibility? Gone. But the debt? That was now fully on them. That's when the panic really started. Jamie called again, this time trying a different tone. We've got a baby, man. You can't just walk away. The bank said we don't qualify without you. We're gonna lose the house. I texted back one sentence. Then you shouldn't have excluded the person who made it possible. He didn't respond. But Mom wasn't done. 2 days later, she showed up at my place unannounced. Puffy eyes. A pie in her hands. Like she thought we were in a Hallmark movie, and baked goods would undo years of imbalance. She didn't even wait for an invite. You've made your point, she said, standing stiff in my doorway. But is it really worth destroying your brother's life over this? I tilted my head slightly. Did he ask himself that question when he refinanced the mortgage without telling me? She winced. That was the one thing none of them expected, that I'd dig deep enough to find the forged signature. That I'd uncover how they used my credit again just to lock in a better rate. That they'd committed fraud, knowingly, and erased me from the conversation when it suited them. She didn't have a comeback. Just let out a long, shaky breath. He was desperate, she said. So was I replied. Desperate to stop being taken advantage of. She gently set the pie down on the table in the entryway. You were never used. I walked over to the shelf, grabbed a file folder, and dropped it beside the pie. Inside were copies, every wire transfer, every check, every utility bill I covered for them over 8 years. Total, $67,400. I looked her in the eye. Then what do you call this? She stared down at the numbers. The dates. The mountain of receipts that spelled out a history of silent sacrifice. Then she looked back up at me. And said nothing. She just left. After that, the silence returned. But this time, it didn't feel so heavy. It wasn't something pressing against my chest. It was something lifting off it. I stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes. That buzzing anxiety I used to carry around like a second skin? It started to fade. I could breathe again. I could sit in my apartment without waiting for the next financial emergency to be tossed at my feet like a grenade. And for the first time in over a decade, I started living for me. I moved. Got myself a 1-bedroom downtown. Nothing flashy. But it had tall windows and sunlight in the mornings. A space that was mine, where I didn't owe anyone a single corner. I started doing things I'd forgotten I even liked. Reading just because I wanted to. Cooking meals that didn't come from a microwave. Saying no, without feeling like I had to justify it. Meanwhile, Jamie and Tara moved into a rented duplex in a less shiny zip code. I heard through a mutual friend that their credit was shot. That they'd been arguing a lot. That Jamie had picked up 2 part-time jobs just to scrape by. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. But I didn't feel bad either. I felt free. Then one day in early spring I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Just my name. It was from Tara's sister. You probably don't want to hear from me, it started, but I wanted to say thank you. Not just for helping them buy that house, but for finally standing up for yourself. You were the only reason they had that roof over their heads in the first place. And the only reason they lost it? Because they took you for granted. I really hope you're doing okay. That's what Tara's sister wrote in the letter. Just wanted you to know, some of us noticed. And some of us get it. I still have that letter. It's tucked away on a shelf behind a framed photo from my college graduation. A day my family decided not to show up for because Jamie had a stomach bug or a sore throat. Whatever the excuse was that time. Funny enough, that letter from someone outside my family means more to me than any thank you I ever got from the people I bled for. Because it wasn't really about the house. It was about taking my power back. About torching the bridge before they dragged me down into the river with them. It was the moment I finally said, enough, and actually meant it. It's been over a year now since I pulled my name off that mortgage and let the pieces fall however they were gonna fall. A full year since I stopped playing the quiet hero in a family that mistook sacrifice for duty, and never once thought to ask if I was okay carrying all that weight. And you know what? I've never felt more sure that I made the right choice. At first, the quiet felt strange. I'd gotten so used to chaos, last-minute calls, sudden emergencies that weren't mine but always landed on my plate like they were. I'd lived so long putting out fires I didn't start, I honestly forgot what my own life sounded like when it wasn't drowning in someone else's noise. But now I know what peace feels like. I live in a simple but beautiful apartment downtown. Nothing too big, nothing flashy, but every square foot of it is mine. Paid for with my own money by my own choices. It's freedom with walls and windows. Every piece of furniture, every picture on the wall, was picked with care. The place is clean, quiet. That silence? It's not something I fear anymore. It's sacred now. No surprise toddlers running through the hallway. Number 11 p.m. phone calls begging me to front a car payment or cover a shift last minute. Just stillness. And for once, I don't confuse it with loneliness. I've been learning to enjoy my own company. Really enjoy it. I read more these days. I journal almost every night. I take long walks through the city after dinner, listening to old music I used to love before my life got swallowed by everyone else's problems. Sometimes I'll sit at the cafe on the corner, sip a cup of coffee, and just watch life unfold around me. People laughing, buses pulling in, dogs tugging on leashes. And I realize I'm not just watching from the outside anymore. I'm part of it, part of the world again. Not just some invisible beam holding up a house that was already collapsing. That house? The one Jamie and Tara lost? It was sold at auction last December. They had to be out before Christmas. Now they're in a cramped little two-bedroom near the highway, far from that shiny suburb where they once took their picture-perfect housewarming selfies. You know, the ones they never invited me to be part of. I didn't cheer when they fell. But I didn't shed tears either. Actions have consequences. And for once, I wasn't the one softening the blow. My parents tried a few times to loop me back in. Standard stuff, holiday texts, vague messages like, "We miss you," or, "It's been too long." My dad even left a voicemail saying, "Jamie's doing better now. Maybe it's time we all move forward." But they never once said sorry. Not for the years of manipulation. Not for the pressure. Not for always choosing what was easy for Jamie over what was healthy for me. They just wanted me to forget. Let it go. Be the bigger person. But here's the thing, I was the bigger person. For years. And it nearly broke me. Being the bigger person doesn't mean staying in a system that's killing you. It doesn't mean giving away your time, your peace, your money, your sense of self, just because someone shares your last name. I've come to learn that forgiveness doesn't need a dramatic conversation or a drawn-out explanation. Sometimes forgiveness just looks like space. Like silence. Like peace. It's something that happens inside your own chest, not at a family dinner. I've forgiven Jamie. But I don't trust him, and probably never will. I've forgiven my parents. But they don't get another chance to talk over me. Or to twist my loyalty into something they can spend. The people I surround myself with now, friends, coworkers, my chosen family, they know me as me. Not as a safety net. Not as a wallet. Not as the guy you call only when your life is on fire. Just a man who's been through some things, and came out standing. I've even started painting again. Nothing fancy. Just for me. Colors and shapes that don't need anyone's permission to take up space. There's one canvas I keep hanging above my desk. It's all blues and grays, with a bit of gold brushed in. I call it Clause 14B. Every time I look at it, I remember the exact moment I sent that email to the bank. The one that ended it all. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. That was the moment I chose me. And in a world that tells you to always put family first, even if it costs you your sanity, choosing yourself is a quiet kind of revolution. If you asked me what the hardest part was, I wouldn't say it was the yelling or the guilt trips. It wasn't even the disappointment. It was unlearning the lie that love means saying yes until you've got nothing left to give. It was rebuilding who I was without tying it to how useful I was. And now? I live by a different code. I help when it's right, but never when it comes at the cost of my mental health. I show up where I'm respected. I love, but I do it with open eyes. A few weeks ago, an old high school friend messaged me on Facebook. We hadn't talked in years. She wrote, "I saw what happened with your brother. I remember how people used to dump everything on you, and you always just took it. It's good to see you finally standing up. You look lighter." And you know what? She was right. I do feel lighter. Because I'm not carrying weight that never belonged to me in the first place. So if anyone out there is reading this, wondering whether it's okay to draw a line, to walk away, to finally say no, let me tell you. You are not selfish for protecting your peace. You are not cruel for putting yourself first. You are not wrong for refusing to drown in someone else's storm. Sometimes, choosing yourself isn't betrayal. It's survival. It's healing. It's the rescue. It's rebuilding from the ashes of a lesson you never wanted but needed to learn. And the most powerful sentence I've ever typed? Just 4 words. I withdraw my signature.